The trading station smelled like rust and fear. Daniel Carter walked through the crowded corridors with his hands in his pockets, trying to ignore the noise around him. He had come here only to buy fuel and food for his ship. He had not planned to stay long. The station sat at the edge of lawless space, far from any government or law. Creatures from dozens of worlds gathered here to trade goods that could not be sold anywhere else. Some of those goods were alive. Daniel was a cargo hauler. He moved supplies between frontier outposts and earned just enough to keep his ship, the Meadowlark, flying. Before that, he had been a combat medic in the human military. He had seen terrible things during those years. He had held dying soldiers in his arms and whispered comfort to them when there was nothing else he could do. Those memories never left him. He was walking toward the fuel depot when he heard the shouting. A crowd had gathered in one of the lower decks, and a loud voice was calling out numbers. Daniel knew what it was before he even looked. An auction. He should have walked away. He should have minded his own business and returned to his ship, but something made him stop. Something made him push through the crowd and look at the platform where the auctioneer stood. She was small and thin, with skin the color of pale lavender. Her species was called Sithrani. Daniel had met a few of them before. They were known for their grace and their pride. But this female had none of that. She stood with her shoulders hunched and her arms wrapped around herself. Her eyes were silver white and empty. She was blind. The auctioneer was speaking quickly, trying to get the crowd interested. He explained that the female had been sold by her own husband. Her name was Vera, and she had lost her sight in an accident 3 cycles ago. In Sithrani culture, physical imperfection was considered a mark of shame. Her husband, a merchant named Korath, had declared her worthless and sold her to pay his debts. The crowd laughed. Some of them made cruel jokes about what they would do with a blind servant. Others shook their heads and walked away. No one wanted to pay good money for a defective slave. Daniel watched Vera flinch at every sound. Her antennae, thin and delicate, twitched as she tried to sense the world around her. She was trembling so hard that he could see it from where he stood. She expected pain. She expected cruelty. It was written in every line of her body, something twisted in Daniel's chest. He remembered the soldiers he had tried to save, the ones who had looked at him with the same hopeless fear in their eyes. He remembered promising them that everything would be all right, even when he knew it was a lie. He raised his hand. The auctioneer looked surprised. The bidding had barely started, and no one else seemed interested. Daniel named a price that was far more than Vera was supposedly worth. It was almost everything he had saved over the past 2 years. There were no other bids. The auctioneer grinned and slammed his hand on the podium. Sold. 2 guards brought Vera down from the platform. She was wearing chains on her wrists, and she stumbled on the uneven floor because she could not see where she was going. When they pushed her toward Daniel, she fell to her knees at his feet. She stayed there, head bowed, waiting for a command, waiting for a blow. Her whole body was shaking. Daniel felt sick. He looked at the guards and told them to remove the chains. They shrugged and did as he asked. It was not their problem anymore. When the chains fell away, Vera did not move. She kept her head down and her hands pressed flat against the cold metal floor. Daniel could hear her breathing, fast and shallow like a frightened animal. He knelt down in front of her. He did not touch her. He did not reach for her. He simply lowered himself to her level and spoke in a quiet voice. "My name is Daniel," he said. "I am not going to hurt you." Vera did not respond. Her antennae quivered, picking up the vibrations of his voice, but she gave no sign that she believed him. "I know you have no reason to trust me," Daniel continued, "but I want you to know that you are safe now. No one is going to hurt you on my ship. Still nothing." Her fingers curled against the floor, and a small sound escaped her throat. It might have been a whimper. It might have been a sob. Daniel stood up slowly. He did not want to frighten her with sudden movements. He told her that his ship was docked nearby and that she could rest there. He said he would bring her food and water and a warm place to sleep. Vera finally raised her head. Her blind eyes moved in his direction, searching for something she could not see. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Daniel waited. He was patient. He had learned patience in the military, sitting with wounded soldiers through long nights. He could wait as long as she needed. After a long moment, Vera slowly rose to her feet. She swayed, unsteady without her sight, and Daniel instinctively reached out to catch her. But he stopped himself before he touched her. He asked if she needed help walking. She shook her head. It was a tiny movement, barely visible. "All right," Daniel said gently. "I will walk ahead of you. Follow the sound of my footsteps. I will go slowly." He turned and began walking toward the docking bay. His boots made a steady rhythm on the metal floor. Behind him, he heard Vera's bare feet padding softly as she followed. She stayed several steps behind him, ready to run if she needed to. She did not trust him. She did not believe his kind words. She had heard kind words before, and they had always been followed by pain, but she followed him anyway. She had no choice. She had nowhere else to go. When they reached the Meadowlark, Daniel opened the hatch and stepped aside. He told Vera that there was a room prepared for her, with a bed and clean blankets. He said she could lock the door from the inside if it made her feel safer. Vera hesitated at the entrance. Her hand touched the wall of the ship, feeling the cool metal beneath her fingers. She took a breath and stepped inside. Daniel watched her disappear into the corridor. He stood there for a long time, looking at the empty doorway. He did not know what he was going to do now. He had spent almost all his money. He had a blind alien on his ship who was terrified of him. He had no plan beyond getting her away from that terrible place. But as he closed the hatch and began preparing the ship for departure, he knew one thing for certain. He was going to keep his promise. He was going to keep her safe, no matter what it cost him. The Meadowlark lifted off from the station and disappeared into the stars. Inside her small room, Vera pressed herself into the corner and wrapped her arms around her knees. She listened to the hum of the engines and waited for the pain to begin. It did not come. The first 3 days were the hardest. Vera stayed in her room with the door locked. She did not eat. She barely slept. Every time she heard footsteps in the corridor, she pressed herself deeper into the corner and held her breath. She was waiting. She knew how this worked. Masters always showed patience at the beginning. They gave their slaves time to feel safe, to let their guard down. Then the cruelty began. It was always the same. Korith had taught her that lesson well. But Daniel did not behave like any master she had known. Every morning, he knocked softly on her door and announced himself by name. He told her that he was leaving food outside. He said there was water and some fruit and a piece of bread. Then his footsteps moved away, and she heard him walk to the other end of the ship. He never tried to open the door. He never demanded that she come out. He never raised his voice or made threats. On the 4th day, Vera finally ate. She was too hungry to resist any longer. She opened the door just a crack and felt around until her fingers found the tray. The food was simple but good. The bread was warm and the fruit was sweet. She ate everything and left the empty tray outside. The next morning, Daniel thanked her for eating. His voice came through the door, calm and kind. He said he was glad she was taking care of herself. Then he walked away again. Vera did not understand. What did he want from her? Why was he being so gentle? There had to be a reason. There was always a reason. The days passed slowly. The Meadowlark traveled through empty space toward human territory. Daniel spent most of his time in the cockpit, running the ship and checking the navigation systems. He talked to himself sometimes, or maybe he was talking to her. He would say things like, "We should reach the relay station in 2 more days," or, "The stars are beautiful out here tonight." Vera began to listen for his voice. At first, she told herself it was because she needed to know where he was at all times. She needed to track his movements so she would not be surprised. But slowly, something changed. She began to find comfort in the sound of his voice. It was steady and warm, like a fire on a cold night. One evening, Vera opened her door and stepped into the corridor. Her heart was pounding and her hands were shaking, but she forced herself to move forward. She used her antennae to sense the vibrations around her. The walls hummed with the energy of the ship. The floor was cool beneath her bare feet. She followed the sound of Daniel's voice until she reached the cargo bay. He was organizing supplies and talking about the next stop on their journey. When he heard her footsteps, he stopped. "Vera," he said softly, "it is good to see you." She stood frozen in the doorway. She did not know what to do or what to say. No one had ever told her it was good to see her. Not since she lost her sight. Daniel did not approach her. He stayed where he was, giving her space. He asked if she was hungry or if she needed anything. His voice was careful, like he was talking to a wounded bird. Vera shook her head. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her voice had become rusty from disuse. She had not spoken to anyone in months. "That is all right," Daniel said. "You do not have to talk if you do not want to. I'm just happy you came out." He went back to organizing his supplies, and Vera stayed in the doorway. She listened to him move around the cargo bay. She heard the clink of metal containers and the rustle of packaging. It was strangely peaceful. After a while, Daniel started talking again. He told her about his life, about how he had become a cargo hauler after leaving the military. He told her about the planets he had visited and the strange creatures he had met. He did not ask her any questions. He did not demand anything in return. He simply talked, filling the silence with his gentle voice. Vera found herself relaxing. Her shoulders dropped. Her breathing slowed. She had not felt this calm in a very long time. When Daniel finished his work, he told her he was going to the cockpit to check the navigation. He said she was welcome to explore the ship if she wanted. He said every room was open to her except the engine room, because it was dangerous. Then he walked past her, keeping a respectful distance, and disappeared down the corridor. Vera stood alone in the cargo bay. She reached out and touched the wall, feeling the smooth metal under her fingers. This ship was nothing like Karth's vessel. There were no chains here, no locked doors, no screaming. There was only silence and the steady hum of the engines. Over the next few days, Vera began to explore. She moved slowly through the ship, using her hands and her antennae to build a picture of her surroundings. She found the kitchen and learned where the food was stored. She found a small room with soft chairs where Daniel sometimes sat to read. She found the shower and used it for the first time in weeks. Daniel always announced himself when he moved through the ship. He would say things like, "I am walking to the kitchen now," or "I am going to be in the cargo bay for a while." He did this so she would never be startled by his sudden appearance. He did this so she would always know where he was. No one had ever been so considerate of her. Not her parents, not her husband, not anyone. The Sithrani were a practical people. They did not waste time on such kindness. Touch and speech were functional, meant to convey information, not comfort. But Daniel was different. Everything about him was different. One night, Vera woke up screaming. The nightmare had been terrible, full of darkness and pain and Karth's cruel laughter. She sat up in her bed, gasping for breath, tears streaming down her face. She heard footsteps in the corridor. They stopped outside her door. "Vera?" Daniel's voice was soft and concerned. "Are you all right?" She could not answer. She was still shaking, still trapped in the memory of the dream. "I am not going to come in," Daniel said. "I just wanted to make sure you are safe. I am right here if you need anything." He did not leave. She could hear him sitting down against the wall outside her door. He stayed there, silent and patient, waiting for her breathing to slow down. It took a long time. But eventually, the fear began to fade. Vera wiped her eyes and pulled the blanket tighter around herself. "I'm all right," she whispered. Her voice was rough and broken, but the words came out. "Good," Daniel said gently. "Try to get some rest. I will be in the cockpit if you need me." She heard him stand up and walk away. His footsteps faded into the distance. Vera lay back down and stared into the darkness that was her constant companion. She thought about Daniel, about his patience and his kindness. She thought about how he never touched her without permission, never raised his voice, never made her feel like a burden. For the first time since she lost her sight, she felt something other than fear and despair. She felt hope. It was a small thing, fragile and uncertain. But it was there, glowing in her chest like a tiny flame. And she held onto it with everything she had. 2 weeks had passed since Daniel bought Vera from the auction. The Meadowlark was traveling through a quiet region of space, far from any stations or planets. The journey to human territory would take another week, and Daniel had settled into a comfortable routine. Vera was eating regularly now. She came out of her room every day and spent time in the common areas of the ship. She still did not talk much, but Daniel could see small changes in her behavior. She no longer flinched when he walked past. She no longer pressed herself against the wall when he entered a room. She was beginning to trust him, even if she did not realize it yet. Daniel was in the cockpit when the alarm started. Red lights flashed across the console, and the ship shook violently. He grabbed the controls and checked the sensors. A meteor shower. The Meadowlark had flown straight into a field of small rocks traveling at high speed. He activated the shields and tried to steer away from the worst of it. But the ship was old, and the navigation system was not as fast as it used to be. A large rock struck the hull, and the Meadowlark lurched sideways. Daniel heard a crash from somewhere in the back of the ship. Then he heard a scream. His heart stopped. He set the ship to automatic and ran toward the sound. The corridor was dark, the lights flickering from the damage. He found Vera's room and pushed the door open. She was on the floor, curled up against the wall. She was clutching her arm and whimpering. The ship had thrown her from her bed, and she had crashed into the metal frame. "Vera," Daniel said, keeping his voice calm. "It is Daniel. There was a meteor shower, but we are safe now. The shields are holding." She did not respond. She was shaking badly, and Daniel could see that her arm was injured. There was a cut near her elbow, and the skin around it was already starting to bruise. "I need to look at your arm," Daniel said. "Can I come closer?" Vera hesitated. Her blind eyes were wide with fear, and her antennae were trembling. But after a moment, she gave a small nod. Daniel moved slowly, announcing each step as he approached. He knelt beside her and waited for her permission before touching her. "I am going to take your arm now," he said. "I will be very gentle. Tell me if it hurts too much." He reached out and carefully took her arm in his hands. His fingers were rough from years of work, but his touch was soft. He examined the cut first, checking how deep it was. Then he felt along the bone, testing for fractures. Vera held her breath. She had expected pain. She had expected rough handling. That was what she was used to. Korath had never been gentle, not even before she lost her sight. To the Sithrani, touch was practical. It served a purpose. There was no need for softness or care. But Daniel's hands were different. They moved across her skin like she was something precious. He turned her arm slowly, checking every inch and told her exactly what he was doing at each moment. "The cut is not deep," he said. "I am going to clean it now. It might sting a little, but only for a moment." He pulled a small medical kit from his pocket. He always carried one with him, a habit from his days as a combat medic. He opened an antiseptic pad and gently wiped the cut. Vera flinched at the sting, but she did not pull away. "You are doing very well," Daniel said. "Almost done." He applied a bandage to the cut and wrapped it carefully. Then he felt along her arm one more time, making sure he had not missed any injuries. "There is some bruising," he said, "but nothing is broken. You will be sore for a few days, but you should heal quickly." He released her arm and sat back. Vera stayed very still. Her breathing was fast, but not from fear. Something else was happening inside her. Something she did not understand, thought no one had ever touched her like that. Not her parents, not her husband, not any of the traders who had handled her at the auction. Daniel's hands had been warm and steady, full of care and concern. He had treated her like she mattered, like she was worth protecting. Tears began to fall down her cheeks. She did not know why she was crying. She was not sad. She was not in pain. But the tears came anyway, spilling from her sightless eyes and running down her lavender skin. "Vera?" Daniel's voice was worried. "Are you all right? Did I hurt you?" She shook her head. She tried to speak, but her throat was tight. Daniel did not move. He did not reach for her or try to comfort her with touch. He simply waited, patient as always, giving her time to find her words. Finally, Vera managed to speak. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why are you so kind to me?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft and honest. "Because you deserve kindness," he said. "Everyone does." Vera felt something break inside her. It was like a wall she had built around her heart was crumbling. She had spent so long believing that she was worthless, that she deserved nothing but pain and cruelty. Kareth had told her that every day. He had made her believe it was true. But here was this human, this strange creature from a world she had never seen, telling her that she deserved kindness. And the way he said it, she almost believed him. She reached out with her uninjured hand. Her fingers searched the air until they found Daniel's hand. She touched his palm, feeling the rough calluses and the warmth of his skin. Daniel went very still. He did not pull away. He slowly turned his palm upward, allowing her fingers to rest against his. They stayed like that for a long moment. Vera traced the lines of his hand, feeling the shape of his fingers. Her antennae picked up his heartbeat, steady and calm. He was not afraid of her. He was not disgusted by her blindness. He was simply there, offering his hand and asking nothing in return. "Thank you," Vera whispered. Daniel's fingers closed gently around hers. "You are welcome," he said. The ship hummed around them, steady and safe. The meteor shower had passed, and the stars stretched endlessly beyond the hull. In the small room with the flickering lights, two beings from different worlds sat together in silence. Vera did not let go of his hand, and Daniel did not let go of hers. Something had changed between them. Neither of them could name it yet, but they both felt it. It was fragile and new, like a flower pushing through frozen ground. It was the beginning of something beautiful. When Daniel finally stood up to check on the ship, he promised to return soon. He said she should rest and let her arm heal. He said he would bring her dinner later. Vera nodded and listened to his footsteps fade down the corridor. She lay back on her bed and pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her own heartbeat. For the first time in years, she did not feel alone. Outpost Haven appeared on the sensors 3 days after the meteor shower. It was a human frontier station, a small but busy place where traders and travelers stopped to refuel and resupply. Daniel had been here many times before. He knew the people and trusted them. He explained to Vera that they needed to stop here for repairs and supplies. More importantly, he needed to get official documentation for her freedom. In human space, slavery was illegal. Once she had the right papers, no one could ever claim ownership of her again. Vera listened quietly as Daniel explained the plan. She trusted him now, more than she had ever trusted anyone. But she was still afraid. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and her freedom felt fragile and uncertain. The Meadowlark docked at the station, and Daniel helped Vera down the ramp. She held his arm as they walked through the crowded corridors. Her antennae twitched constantly, picking up sounds and vibrations from every direction. There were so many people here, so many voices, so many footsteps. Daniel led her to the command center, where they met Captain Linda Hayes. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and kind eyes. She listened as Daniel explained the situation, nodding along with a serious expression. "I can help with the documentation," Linda said. "It will take a day or two to process, but once it is done, she will be legally free under human law." Vera felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was really happening. She was going to be free. But then Linda's expression changed. She glanced at a message on her console and frowned. "There is a problem," she said. "A Sithrani diplomatic vessel docked at the station this morning. They are asking about a female named Vera." Daniel felt his stomach drop. He stepped in front of Vera, placing himself between her and the door. "Who is asking?" he said. "Ambassador Zian," Linda replied. "And he is not alone. There is a merchant with him. Someone named Korath." Vera made a small sound of terror. Her hand tightened on Daniel's arm, and her whole body began to shake. Daniel put his hand over hers. "It is all right," he said quietly. "I am not going to let them take you." An hour later, they stood in the main conference room of the station. Ambassador Zin was a tall Sithrani with dark blue skin and cold eyes. Beside him stood Korath, Vera's former husband. He was smaller than the ambassador, with sharp features and a cruel smile. When Korath saw Vera, his smile widened. "There she is," he said. "My property." Daniel stepped forward. His hands were at his sides, but every muscle in his body was tense. "She is not your property," he said. "I purchased her at a lawful auction. She belongs to no one." Korath laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Sithrani law is clear," he said. "A defective spouse remains the property of her husband. The sale was only temporary. I have the right to reclaim her at any time." Ambassador Zun nodded. "This is correct. Under our laws, the female Vera is still bound to her husband. We have come to take her home." Daniel looked at the ambassador with steady eyes. "You are not in Sithrani space anymore," he said. "You are in a human station under human law. And in our law, slavery is not recognized. Vera is a free being." Korath's smile faded. He took a step toward Daniel, his voice rising with anger. "She is worthless," he spat. "She is blind and broken. She cannot work, cannot serve, cannot do anything useful. Why would you want her?" Daniel did not move. He did not raise his voice. But when he spoke, there was steel in his words. "She is not worthless," he said. "She is kind and brave and stronger than you will ever understand. Her blindness does not define her value. Where I come from, we do not throw people away because they are different." He took a step toward Korath, and the Sithrani merchant stumbled backward. "In human culture," Daniel continued, "those who abandon the weak and the vulnerable are the ones we consider defective. Those who sell their own family for profit are the ones we consider broken." Korath's face twisted with rage. He turned to Ambassador Yuan. "Do something," he demanded. "Make them give her back." But the ambassador hesitated. He looked at Captain Linda Hayes, who stood by the door with her arms crossed. Behind her, several security officers waited in silence. "Ambassador," Linda said calmly, "let me be very clear. If you attempt to take Vera by force, it will be considered an act of aggression against a protected citizen of this station. The political consequences would be severe." Jen's jaw tightened. He was a diplomat. He understood politics. He knew when a fight was not worth winning. "This is not over," he said coldly. "We will file a formal complaint with the Galactic Council." "You do that," Linda replied. "In the meantime, Vera stays here." The ambassador turned and walked out of the room. Korath lingered for a moment, glaring at Daniel with pure hatred. Then he followed the ambassador, and the door closed behind them. The room was silent. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. He turned to Vera, who was trembling beside him. "They are gone," he said softly. "You are safe." Vera could not speak. She had heard everything. She had heard Daniel defend her, had heard him call her kind and brave and strong. She had heard him stand up to her former husband and refuse to let her be taken. No one had ever done that for her. No one had ever thought she was worth fighting for. Tears began to fall from her blind eyes. She reached out and found Daniel's chest, pressing her palms against his heart. She could feel it beating, fast and strong. "You called me brave," she whispered. Daniel covered her hands with his own. "Because you are," he said. "You survived things that would have destroyed most people. You kept going when everyone told you that you were worthless. That takes more courage than anything I have ever done." Vera shook her head. The tears were coming faster now. "I am not brave," she said. "I am terrified all the time." Daniel leaned closer. His voice was gentle and certain. "Being brave does not mean you are not afraid," he said. "It means you keep going, even when you are afraid. And you have done that every single day." Vera looked up at him, even though she could not see his face. She wished she could see him, just once. She wanted to know what kindness looked like. But even without her sight, she knew. She felt it in his touch, in his voice, in the steady beat of his heart beneath her hands. She felt it in every gentle word he had ever spoken to her. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Daniel smiled, even though she could not see it. "You are welcome," he said. "Now let us finish the paperwork and get you officially free." He took her hand and led her out of the conference room. Captain Linda Hayes nodded at them as they passed. There was respect in her eyes, and something that looked like admiration. Vera walked beside Daniel with her head held high. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was worth something. She felt like she mattered, and she knew deep in her heart that she would never forget the human who had shown her what true kindness meant. The documentation was complete. Vera held the small data chip in her hand, running her fingers over its smooth surface. It contained her official status as a free being under human law. No one could ever claim her as property again. No one could ever sell her or trade her or treat her as less than a person. She was free. Daniel stood beside her in the main hall of Outpost Haven. The station was busy around them, full of travelers and traders going about their business. But for this moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the universe. "So," Daniel said quietly, "what would you like to do now?" Vera did not answer right away. It was a question she had never been asked before. Her whole life, others had made decisions for her. Her parents had arranged her marriage. Korath had controlled every aspect of her existence. Even at the auction, her fate had been decided by strangers. But now, for the first time, someone was asking what she wanted. "I do not know," she admitted. Her voice was small and uncertain. "I have never been free before. I do not know how to be free." Daniel nodded. He understood. "You do not have to decide right now," he said. "I can take you anywhere you want to go. There are human colonies that welcome refugees. There are stations where you could find work, if you wanted. Or I could take you back to Sithrani space, if that is what you prefer. Vera flinched at the mention of her homeworld. She never wanted to go back there. Her people had looked at her with disgust ever since she lost her sight. They had treated her like something broken and shameful. She had no family left who cared about her, no friends who would welcome her return. I do not want to go back, she said. There is nothing for me there. Then we will find somewhere else, Daniel said. Somewhere you can start over. Somewhere you can be happy. Vera turned toward him. Her blind eyes searched in his direction, and her antennae reached out to sense his presence. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could hear the steady rhythm of his breathing. What about you? She asked. What do you mean? Where will you go? Daniel was quiet for a moment. He had not thought about that. He had been so focused on getting Vera to safety that he had not considered what would happen afterward. I will keep doing what I have always done, he said. Flying the Meadowlark, hauling cargo, moving from station to station. It is not a glamorous life, but it is mine. Vera was silent. She pressed her fingers against the data chip, feeling the tiny grooves etched into its surface. Her heart was beating fast, and her mouth was dry. There was something she wanted to ask. Something she was afraid to say. Daniel, she whispered. Yes? Can I stay with you? The words hung in the air between them. Daniel stared at her, surprised. He had not expected this. You want to stay on the Meadowlark? He asked. Vera nodded. I know I am not very useful. I cannot see, and I do not know how to do the things you do. But I could learn. I could help with small tasks. I could. She trailed off, losing her courage. She felt foolish. Why would Daniel want her on his ship? She was a burden, a liability. She could not even walk down a corridor without bumping into things. But then Daniel spoke, and his voice was soft and warm. Vera, he said, you are not a burden. You never have been. He reached out and took her hand. His fingers wrapped around hers, strong and gentle at the same time. The Meadowlark has always felt empty with just one person aboard, he continued. I would be honored if you stayed. Vera felt tears welling up in her eyes again. She seemed to cry so easily now. But these were not tears of sorrow or fear. These were tears of joy. Do you mean it? She asked. I mean it, Daniel said. We can figure things out together. I can teach you about the ship, help you learn your way around. And you can teach me about your people, about how you see the world through sound and touch. It could be a good life, I think. For both of us. Vera squeezed his hand. She could not find the words to express what she was feeling. Gratitude, relief, hope, and something else. Something deeper and warmer that she did not yet have a name for. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for everything. Daniel smiled. Come on, he said. Let us go home. They walked back to the Meadowlark together. Vera held Daniel's arm as they moved through the station, but she did not feel helpless anymore. She felt connected, supported, cared for. When they boarded the ship, Daniel led her to the cockpit. He helped her into the co-pilot's seat and showed her where the controls were. Most of them were useless to her, but she did not mind. It was enough just to be there, beside him, part of something. Daniel started the engines, and the Meadowlark lifted off from the station. The ship glided smoothly into space, leaving Outpost Haven behind. Vera sat quietly as the stars surrounded them. She could not see them, but she could feel the vastness of space through the vibrations of the ship. It was peaceful here, far from the noise and chaos of the station. Daniel, she said after a while. Yes? Will you tell me about the stars? Daniel looked out the viewport at the endless expanse of light and darkness. Then he began to speak. He told her about the colors, the bright white of young stars, the soft yellow of older ones, the deep red of giants nearing the end of their lives. He told her about the patterns they made, the constellations that humans had named after animals and heroes and ancient myths. He told her about nebulae, vast clouds of gas and dust where new stars were born. He told her about galaxies, each one containing billions of stars, spiraling through the universe in an endless dance. Vara listened to every word. She could not see what he described, but in her mind, she painted pictures of light and wonder. She imagined colors she had almost forgotten, shapes and patterns that stretched beyond the limits of imagination. When Daniel finished, she was smiling. It was a small smile, shy and uncertain, but it was real. It was the first genuine smile she had worn in years. "Thank you," she said. "That was beautiful." Daniel reached over and took her hand. "Anytime you want," he said. "I will describe the stars for you." They sat together in the cockpit as the Metal Arcs sailed through the void. Outside, the universe stretched on forever, full of mystery and possibility. Inside, two beings from different worlds sat side by side, their hands intertwined. Vara did not know what the future would bring. She did not know where their journey would take them or what challenges they would face. But for the first time in her life, she was not afraid. She had found something rare and precious. She had found a gentle soul who saw her not as a burden or a defect, but as a person worthy of love and kindness. And as the stars glittered silently beyond the viewport, Vara knew that she had finally found what she had been searching for all along. She had found home. The Metal Arc flew on, carrying its two passengers toward an uncertain but hopeful future. And in the quiet of the cockpit, surrounded by the endless beauty of the universe, Vara closed her blind eyes and listened to the steady beat of Daniel's heart. It was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard.